Time for another Monster Mayhem video, and for this video, this monster is sort of one that kind of gets the short end of the stick, kind of a backseat treatment. Never really seen as a main monster or a big bad evil guy, really more of a henchman type monster, but they're prevalent and I really like drawing them, so let's talk about goblins. So the key details are the big things with goblins. So I want to talk about the ones that I tend to focus on. So first and foremost, those ears. I will tend to draw mine with more of a human style ear, but you can also go more animal like. So a real quick overview of the human style is having what I like to break it down into three parts as the bump, the hook, and the Y. The inside being a bump in the ear and the outside being a hook, and then the inside raised part being actually a shaped Y. And you can do that and you can alter the overall shape. Obviously we have a little bit more of an oval ear as humans, but goblins are going to have more triangular, so just incorporate that bump, hook, and Y and you'll be able to be fine drawing human-like ears. Now you can alter that and you can do something that's more animal, and so if you understand how the cat ears work, you can have these triangular ears that really cover a lot more of the top of the skull, similar whenever you're looking at the dog ears. But you can also kind of have that more of a floppier ear where you've got that more stiff muscled cartilage really at the base and then the overlap of the ear tissue itself. Now let's move on to noses, because these are also pretty important. Noses are always disproportionately large on a goblin's face, but you can change up your shape, whether you want to have more triangular, whether you want to have a really hard bridge, a really long portion of cartilage, whether you want them to be more ovular. Really, it's up to you. But speaking of the shapes of those noses, the head shapes are also really important depending on the type of goblin that you're going to make. If you want one that's more intimidating, use sharp angles, use triangles, things like that. If you want something that's a little more approachable, use softer shapes, use ovals and circles. So let's move on to the hands. This is one thing that I also really particularly care about when I draw goblins, is I like to emphasize the knuckles. I like to keep skinny fingers, but really swell up those knuckles. There's something that's a little uncanny and unsettling about seeing those knuckles that are a little bit more bulbous and a little more swollen, and I always think that they tend to work not just in a lot of monsters, but really, really work well with something like a goblin, because they're humanoid enough, and yet they're supposed to still have these monster qualities. And that is just enough of a tweak of what we know as what we see in anatomically day to day to kind of make something seem a little more unsettling. And then speaking of unsettling, let's talk about teeth. There's always a lot of them. They're always pointy, but they're not always sharp. So I like to kind of change things up. I really like to have asymmetrical teeth that are different shapes overall, and that kind of adds the like monstery quality to it. It's a little more uncanny, and again, it's unsettling like the knuckles. But those are just a few of the little things I like to add as little tidbits of character to my goblins, because overall they're pretty common, and you know, they're humanoid to begin with. So those are just the key features that I tend to include whenever I'm drawing them. And I do think that they are a pretty underutilized type of monster. I think that, I mean, depending on what sources you're looking at, they can be evil, they can be fun, they can be a lot of things. They're kind of, because they're a little bit of a less popular and less formidable monster, they can be a little more approachable. But those are just my thoughts on goblins. What are your thoughts? Do you like them? Do you hate them? Are you indifferent? Do you think that they're overplayed? What are your thoughts on goblins as a whole? I'd like to know. So thanks for watching. I appreciate you guys. Go check out my school for more art hack guides and to continue the conversation about fantasy fall that we've got going on here. Go draw some goblins. Thanks everybody.